Glory, glory to old Georgia. Heroes have graced the field before you. Men with hearts, bodies, and minds of which the entire Bulldog Nation can be justifiably proud. The tradition of unbridled excellence, demonstrated by these individuals and many others, spans more than a full century. And now a new breed of Bulldogs stands ready to take the field of battle, to assume the reins of their Georgia forebears and continue that tradition, understanding that there is no tradition more worthy of envy, no institution worthy of such loyalty as the University of Georgia. As we prepare for another meeting between the hedges, let all the Bulldog faithful rally behind the men who now wear the red and black with two words, two simple words, which express the sentiments of the entire Bulldog Nation.
Good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yep, that's right. It is me, Uncle Lou. Live on LouTube for you after winning my 27th straight game yesterday. That's right. I am a vital key piece to the UGA puzzle, no matter how mad that makes you. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Your Season is Over video, the only Sunday morning recap video that actually matters every Sunday during the college football season, live and only right here on LouTube. Your season is over. Brought to you by Uncle Lou. Team asshole. Let's go. We've got a great list of losers to choose from today. Look at that. Look at that. God almighty. That's just a horrible bunch of teams there. Anyway, how y'all doing? Happy Sunday. Not only do I have a page of copious notes here, I've got 2 pages of copious notes here. This is going to be a great video. We're going to do the Your Season is Over list, the point and laugh, right? And what do we got? 9 helmets today? I've got more than 9 teams written down, though. Oh, my God. Went with 9 helmets today. Probably could have gone with about 15. But we'll run through the list of losers. We'll start with the helmets. Then I'll talk about some other losers. I've got some teams that won yesterday and actually looked good. Got some teams that won but didn't look so good. We're going to talk about the HEISMAN, my updated HEISMAN list. I'm going to give you my prediction for the college football playoff ranking that comes out Tuesday. Then I'm going to give you my college football playoff rankings, at least the top 4 or 5. We've got the We're Back list. You guys know the routine. Please hit the thumbs up. It's time to get started. Your season is over. Week 11 edition. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Boy, I knew as soon as I played that song, a lot of y'all was going to be with the type. I knew it. Man, where do we want to start? That's a good question, actually. Where do we want to start? Let's start with the Pac-12 and Utah. Man, I know I say this from time to time. UST, I'll put it right there. There are some teams that just aren't that much fun to make fun of. And Utah is one of those teams. I don't really know why that is. I don't know if it's... What do y'all think? Aren't there some teams... Look, there are certain teams when they lose, it's hilarious. The entire college football world points and laughs. And then there's other teams when they lose, you're like, kind of whatever. It is what it is. I don't know if it has to do with... You know what I'm thinking? I think it's fan bases. I think that might be what it is. There's not a bajillion idiotic Utah fans running around. Not that they don't have a significant fan base or that they're not an important team or program. It's just, at least when it comes to the internet, I don't see a bunch of, brain dead Utah fans running around like you do a lot of other fan bases. Maybe that's what it is. But Utah lost again. I I was surprised, though, to be honest with you, that Utah was able to put up as many points as they did in this game. And really, the story to me is more about Washington than it is Utah. Utah lost 35 to 28. Utah was winning at halftime at Washington. Utah's got no offense at all. None. They scored 28 points on Washington in the first half. They were up 28 to 24. Now, to Washington's credit, they made whatever adjustments or whatever they needed to do at halftime, and they actually came and shut Utah out in the second half. But Utah, a team with no offense, running backs playing quarterback, safeties playing running back. Cam Rising hasn't played all year. The tight end issues, just the talent discrepancy between Utah and the majority of the teams they play. It's really yet another testament to head coach Kyle Whittingham that they're even ranked. I mean, they're what are they, 7-3 now or something like that? I mean, that's in other words, it's hard to kind of laugh at Utah, but Michael Penix, another 300 yards yesterday and a couple of touchdowns. We'll talk about him when we get to the Heisman stuff. But what do y'all? I don't know what to make of Washington. I don't. They've got an electric offense. There's no question. Michael Penix can throw for 300 yards in his sleep. We saw a couple of weeks ago against Southern Cal that if they choose to run the ball, they can kind of do that too. And they've got some NFL wide receivers that nobody ever talks about. You hear people, and I'm guilty of it too. You talk about Washington, you talk about their coach, you talk about their record, you talk about Michael Penix. Some people talk about their defense or lack thereof. No one talks about their wide receiver. There's NFL wide receivers there, so they're a good team. I mean, obviously, you don't get to 10-0 if you're terrible. So they're a good team. But it just seems like every single week that has gone by over the last 4 to 5 weeks, maybe a little long, since they played Oregon, really. When they played Oregon, that was the last time really I watched Washington play where I went, man, they can win it all. And again, I'm not saying Washington is not any good, but you watch Washington play, it just, I don't know. In your head, look, when you get to this point in the season and you're still in the playoff race, you can't help but look forward to like possible matchups down the road that might occur, right? Well, first of all, they've got to beat Oregon again. We'll talk about them some too. I would still right now pick Oregon to win that game. I know Washington beat them in the regular season. If they played tomorrow, I would pick Oregon. We'll see. But even if they get past that, just think about potential matchups for Washington. And I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to any of the teams that are sort of still in it for playoff contention, I don't know that there's a team they can beat other than maybe Florida State. They just seem to have lost something. The first 6 or 7 weeks of the season, most people, myself included, even though we didn't have Washington ranked 1 or 2, most people were saying, Washington might be the most complete team. They might be the most dominant team. They might be the best team. Well, I just don't know if that's the case for Washington. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on. Again, they're a really good team. I'm not shitting on them. But when you're 10-0 and you're about to be playing for a conference championship, most likely with a trip to the playoffs on the line, you can't help but look forward and go, how would they fare in some of these hypothetical matchups? And I'm losing confidence in Washington by the day. But Utah lost again. Their season has been over for a while. They tried really hard. The carnage that we expected in the Pac-12, I don't think has really occurred. Not up to this point. We've still got 2 weeks left to go. So, we'll see. But it's down to Washington and Oregon. If either one of those teams wins out, they're getting in. If Oregon wins their next 2 games, they'll be 11-1. And if they win the Pac-12 title at 12-1, especially if it's against Washington, the only team that's beat them, so they avenge that loss, Oregon's getting in. If Washington wins the next 2 weeks and then wins the Pac-12 title game at 13-0, they're getting in. Some of the carnage that I expected to happen, we have not yet seen. Yesterday's game, to Washington's credit, Washington versus Utah was one of those games a few weeks ago, even at the beginning of the season, where you looked at and you went, man, Washington could be sitting there at 0 losses or 1 loss, and that Utah game's tricky. Could come in there and kind of upset the apple cart kind of thing. We haven't seen that. And the same thing with Oregon. They've managed, outside of that 1 loss to Oregon, to navigate their schedule without any more losses. So Washington and Oregon still alive. I think a lot of people were kind of I don't know about counting on, or a lot of people thought that the Pac-12 may be headed towards a similar scenario to last year, where you have a 2-loss team get to the conference title game and beat the 1-loss team. You remember last year, Utah got to the Pac-12 title game, beat Southern Cal. Southern Cal only had 1 loss. Had Southern Cal won that Pac-12 title game, they were headed to the playoffs, not Ohio State. But they didn't. They lost. And a lot of people kind of thought we were headed towards a similar outcome for the Pac-12 this season. And at least up to this point, with only 2 weeks to go, that does not look like the case. We appear headed for a collision course of an 11-1 Oregon versus a 12-0 Washington in the Pac-12 title game. Again, we've got 2 weeks to go. Both Washington and Oregon have got tricky games to navigate over the next couple of weeks, but we'll see. But Utah, you won't be involved in that. Your season is over. Southern Cal's season is over. Fired Alex Grinch. That was not a surprise to anybody. They lost to Oregon yesterday, 36-27. And it's another one. Oregon should have beat this team worse. They probably should have beat this team worse. Now, look, every single team in the country, again, it's week 10. Every single team in the country has had some games that they won that you look back on and you can go, I can't believe they didn't beat that team by more. Literally everybody. Ohio State, remember the Indiana game? Didn't score, only scored 23 points, no passing touchdowns against a terrible Indiana team. Georgia struggled, was losing at halftime to South Carolina at home. Remember that? Florida State, Boston College on the road, only won by 2, struggled against a terrible Pitt team. Washington, see the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've struggled all the time. Michigan, Michigan hasn't really struggled except for the Penn State game, but they haven't played anybody and they cheat, so they're irrelevant. Oregon has a loss, right? And I don't think this win over Southern Cal. Southern Cal, there was every reason for Southern Cal to show up and just roll over and play dead in this game. Fired Alex Grinch, season completely over. Caleb Williams crying on the sideline after last week's loss because he knew that was it. There's just nothing else for him to play for as far as an achievement standpoint goes. He's played himself out of the Heisman race individually, and as a team, Southern Cal is neither winning or even getting to the Pac-12 title game. And this was a perfect spot in a home game for Oregon to come out and really put one on Southern Cal. And they just didn't do it. They won. Now, they looked convincing. I didn't think this game was ever really in doubt. I watched a lot of this game. It didn't come on until 10:30, so I didn't watch much of the first quarter, but I watched a lot of the second, third, and fourth quarter. So it's not like I ever thought the game was in doubt, but, they didn't cover the spread was like 14 or 15. Not that that necessarily matters what the spread is, but I just would have thought Oregon is, more than 8 or 9 points better than Southern Cal. Now, Bo Nix had another great game. We'll talk about him too when we get to the Heisman, but he was over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Oregon keeps on rolling. And here's the thing. We're at the point in the season now where margin of victory is going to start to matter less and less, unless it becomes time to pick the 4th playoff spot and there are multiple teams vying for that 4th spot. Other than that, at this point, margin of victory doesn't matter. And I'll give you an example. Florida State. If Florida State wins their next 3 games, 2 regular season games and an ACC title game, by 1 point each, they're in the playoff. If Georgia wins their next 3 games by 1 point each, they're in the playoff. Ohio State or Michigan. Now, they can't both win out because they play each other. But if either one of those teams wins their next 3 games by 1 point, they're getting into playoffs, right? So the margin of victory thing as you get later in the season begins to mean less and less, except when it comes to that potentially 4th spot. If there's an argument between, say, an Alabama and a 1-loss Oregon, for example, right? Let's say Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC title game. Alabama's 12-1 with an SEC title. Oregon's 12-1 with a Pac-12 title. What if it comes down to those 2 teams for the 4th spot? Who gets it? Well, games like this is what you start looking at. Games like Alabama barely beating Arkansas 24-21 are things you start to look at. So, and again, I'm not knocking either one of those teams, as those 2 teams are 2 of only about 6 or 7 teams that have any chance left of making the playoffs. I'm not knocking them. I'm just using that as an example to make a point that as we get later in the year, it's not that how much you beat somebody by doesn't matter at all. It just starts to matter a little bit less, and winning the games, even if by 1 point, becomes more and more important. So Oregon, again, we'll see. They've got Oregon State in the Civil War game coming up. So we'll see. And then a rematch probably with Washington. But Southern Cal, your season's been over. Big surprise, it's over again. This is another situation here where even though Miami lost, and look, I'm a college football fan like you are. There's not a college football fan on planet Earth that doesn't love to point and laugh at the Miami fans, and we'll talk about them again when we get to the We're Back list at the end. But Miami lost again, this time to in-state rival Florida State. But Florida State, what are you doing? What are you doing? I got to flip the page. See, I got multiple pages of copious notes today, so I got to flip my page now. Miami, what are you doing? Where did I write this down? God damn it. You know I can't find nothing. What am I doing? Here we go. These multiple page thing is confusing, Uncle Lou. Miami 27-20 with a backup quarterback. Van Dyke basically didn't play. And after watching the little bit that he did play, why did he play? He's horrific. The guy Williams wasn't any better. He was 8 of 23 for like 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Van Dyke, 2 of 7, 29 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception at the end of the game. I don't understand why a guy's healthy enough to play or he's not. So, and he's good enough to play or he's not. I don't know why they put Miami's in. Look, Miami, Mario Cristobal, yet again here. Miami fans are going to need to explain this one to me. Why did Van Dyke have 7 pass attempts? Why? Why was he on the field? Why? If Williams is no good, why is Williams out there? Why isn't Van Dyke? You're 10 weeks into the season. This is what you're doing at the court. Miami had the ball at the end of the game. Guess who's in there? Van Dyke. What are we doing? Mario Cristobal's got issues. They're well documented too. But you know who else has issues? Florida State. Hey, Florida State, were all 19 of your wide receivers hurt again? Is that what you're going to tell us again? Like you did at Pitt? Struggled against Pitt, had to come back to win that game. Well, we had 5 wide receivers out, woo. We were playing walk-ons. It's November, man. Everybody's got injuries. And I asked y'all before the game, I said, are these wide receivers back? You said, yes. No excuses. So I don't want to hear any. That was not good. 27-20? It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Georgia-Florida's a rivalry game too. How did that work out? My God. You know, I've been riding the Florida State fans hard for a couple of weeks because honestly, they're asking for it. The Florida State fans are attention whores right now. Every comment section you go in, there's Florida State fans that are waddling around in their own piss and puke, begging for people to pat them on the fucking head. Oh, Florida State is so good. Look at Florida State. Oh, they're undefeated. Oh, they beat Miami by 7. Oh, they beat Boston College by 2. Oh, they beat Clemson in overtime. None of those are good wins, man. None of those are good wins. I'm going to tell you the same thing. Washington and Florida State are the same team. They're 2 undefeated teams that aren't winning a playoff game unless they get matched up against each other, in which case one of them's got to win one. But other than that, they're not beating anybody with any legitimate playoff aspirations. Nobody. Florida State or Washington, either one would lose to Texas. They'd lose to Ohio State. They'd lose to Michigan. They'd lose to Georgia. They'd lose to Alabama. What conference is left? They'd lose to Oregon, Washington, Georgia, Bama, Texas, Michigan, and Ohio State. I mean, those are your playoff contenders. They'd lose to every one of them. Every one of them. And yet you couldn't even run the ball. What did I write any of this down? I don't even know if I wasted my time. I probably did. Florida State, 57 rushing yards. 57 rushing yards against Miami yesterday. Jordan Travis had -30. Let me tell you something about Jordan Travis. He ain't getting nowhere near no Heisman Trophy. It's not happening. The only stat that puts Jordan Travis anywhere near a Heisman Trophy is that 10-0 next to Florida State's name. He's the quarterback of an undefeated team. That's it. The numbers aren't there for him. They're not. Cry, bitch, moan, whine, whatever. So that means not only are you not winning a playoff game or a national title, you don't even have the consolation prize of a pointless Heisman Trophy. Sorry. And these Florida State fans, man, where are my Tennessee fans in the chat? I know y'all are in here and we're going to talk about Tennessee in a minute. Will the Tennessee fans please tell the Florida State fans to be careful what they wish for? Tennessee fans did this last year. Florida State fans on the internet right now are just like Tennessee fans were on the internet last year in between the Alabama and Georgia game. They beat Alabama. All of a sudden, it looked like somebody kicked over a hill-jacked ant pile, and they just all over the internet, embarrassing themselves. We're going 100-0. We're beating the shit out of everybody. We play with the best team on the planet. And then they come out and they got their dick put in the dirt when they played a real team, Georgia. And Florida State fans right now are acting just like Hill-Jack, Voltard Tennessee fans acted last year. Like they can't be beat. Like they've been some amazing team for 100 straight fucking years. Y'all have been into garbage for a decade, and you're about to be right back in there. The only difference is this time you'll be on the top of the pile. That's it. That's it. That's the only pile you'll be on top of, too, is the garbage pile. Florida State, Miami, Jordan Travis, 19 of 31, 265 yards, 1 touchdown, negative 30 yards rushing. No Heisman for you. Sorry. I can tell you, as the fan of a team that has playoff aspirations, Georgia, I got my fingers crossed we play Florida State in the first round or Washington in the first round. Those are the 2 worst playoff eligible teams at this point in the season. Facts. Cry, bitch, moan. You know who's not playoff eligible? Penn State. Penn State screwed up. They've got a Jimbo Fisher situation on their hands with James Franklin. They gave the guy a huge contract extension and raise after last year because they thought, for some reason, that James Franklin was a candidate for the Southern Cal job before they announced that they had hired Lincoln Riley. So Penn State panicked and signed this guy to a ridiculous contract. And there has not been a bigger James Franklin fan, supporter, defender, nut hugger, whatever you want to call it, on the internet than Uncle Lou for the last 5, 6, 7 years while they've been busy getting their ass beat every time they play a top 10 team or a Michigan or an Ohio State or whatever the case. At some point, you've got to win those games. That's it. Now, the only difference I can see between Jimbo Fisher, well, there's a couple of differences I see between Jimbo Fisher and James Franklin. Number one, James Franklin still has a job. But number two, James Franklin wins 9, 10 games a year. Jimbo Fisher wins 7, 8 games a year. Other than that, they're you can't tell one from the other. You cannot continue to wallow around at the same level of mediocrity year after year after year, especially when the Big Ten outside of those 3 schools, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, is that bad. It means nothing to beat a Rutgers, an Indiana, a Maryland, a Michigan State, an Illinois, a Minnesota, a Northwestern, a Nebraska, an Iowa, a Wisconsin. You just name them. The Big Ten is a fucking B league. It's a JV league. Outside of those 3 teams, Michigan and Ohio State, they are 2 truly elite teams and programs year in and year out, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. Penn State is a good team and a good program. They're a top 10, top 15-ish team. But that's because they get to play Maryland, Illinois, Rutgers, Minnesota, Northwest, all these teams I just named. Who couldn't win 8, 9, 10 games a year? Who couldn't? And then you non-con, you beat up on West Virginia. It is time for James Franklin, or really it's time for Penn State to make a decision. I don't know. You know, I had so much faith. I don't even know if that's the right way to put it. I'm talking about Dew Aller, their quarterback. Their quarterback this year, Dew Aller. I was so sick of watching Sean Clifford that I think I tricked myself into thinking that whoever they put out there after that is got to be better. I was dead wrong. Dead wrong. I Googled deer in headlights, and the only thing that comes up is a bunch of images of Dew Aller. This guy looks lost, confused, scared, intimidated, doesn't know where he is. You ever been at the mall or any big crowded place, a sporting event or whatever, where some kid gets lost and he's just... That's Dew Aller. This guy's horrific. I'm talking, it's unbelievable how bad he is. And it's one thing to be bad to the point where, like, you know, you're trying to make a play at the end of a game or the end of a half, and so you force a ball in and the defender makes a good play and intercepts it. This guy's just straight up scared to throw the fucking ball. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know if Penn State is doing this to these QBs, just getting in their head and messing them up so bad, or if they're just recruiting, signing, coaching, and developing terrible quarterbacks. But Dew Aller, good God, Penn State's like, I don't know the difference between Penn State and Iowa anymore. They lost 24-15 to Michigan. Here's some numbers. Dew Aller, 10 of 22. 10 times he got up the balls to complete a pass for 70 yards. Whoopity-doo. Penn State only had 164 yards rushing. I mean, that's not going to get it done either. I mean, if you're going to beat Michigan with this can of corn, this Dew Aller at QB, you better have 264 yards rushing, not 164. Just a terrible offensive performance. Drew McCarthy, Michigan didn't throw the ball a single time in the second half. McCarthy was 7 of 8 for 60 yards. But again, I'm not exaggerating like they barely threw it. No. They threw 0 passes in the second half, Michigan. They just lined up and ran the ball. Now, they didn't score a ton of points. And Penn State played well enough defensively to win this game. I'm sorry. You give up, 24? You give up 24 points in today's college football, you should win the game. You should 100% win the game. Is it ideal to give up 24 points? No, you'd like to shut everybody out. But in today's football, with offenses the way they are, with the rules the way they are, linemen can go downfield on passing plays. You can't even look at a quarterback or a wide receiver, or it's targeting and pass interference. All these, everything. If the worst you do is give up 24 points as a defense, you should 100% win the game. But of course, you can't do that when you're only scoring 15. Blake Corum had a good game for Michigan, 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michigan 0 pass attempts in the second half. So there you go. I talked about the game itself, what happened in the game, the players in the game. Talked about Penn State. Their season is over. They got to make a decision on James Franklin. I don't know how long they're going to tread water with this guy. Penn State is like the scene at the end of the Titanic where they're both floating on top of that door in the ocean, and the door can't support both of them. So Rose lets go of Jack, and Jack sinks down to the bottom. Penn State's athletic director, they're Rose, and James Franklin is Jack. And Penn State's going to have to decide if they just want to let him float to the bottom, because it's just not fucking working. It's just not fucking working. You know what else ain't working? Georgia Tech. They're still terrible. And they're going to remain that way for the foreseeable future because, well, they're just not a good program, are they? No, they're not. I'm a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I've already had enough fun, I've had my fun this season at the expense of the Tater Man, Clemson, right there, because they're terrible. Then I lost 4 games. They don't even fucking matter. They're just an irrelevant team with another coach that doesn't know what he's doing. And Dabo Swinney, a hard-headed, his way or the highway deal. So anyway, I've had my fun at Clemson's expense. So I didn't really, if they'd have lost, that would have been funny too. But, Georgia plays Georgia Tech in 2 weeks. Georgia plays on the road at Tennessee this coming week. And then after that, we play Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech has been on a little bit of a roll lately. Now, you got to remember, this is Georgia Tech we're talking about. So being on a roll for a team like Georgia Tech means they win a game or 2 a month, I was about to say I was secretly hoping, but it wasn't even really a secret. I think I said it out loud on a bunch of videos this week. I was just hoping Georgia Tech won the rest of their games till the last game of the season when Georgia plays them, because beating up on Georgia Tech for the last several years, it hasn't brought me all that much joy, because by the time we get to that game, which is played the last weekend of the regular season every single year, the Thanksgiving weekend, rivalry weekend, by the time we get there, Georgia Tech's sitting at 2 or 3 wins. They know they're not any good. Their fans have abandoned ship long ago. And there's just, it's not even fun shit talking about Georgia Tech or to Georgia Tech fans because they agree with you. They're like, yeah, you're right. Georgia's the best team and program on the planet, and we're in the fucking toilet. And it just kind of takes some of the fun away. But they had won a couple of games, and some of them were getting a little mouthy too. Some of these nerds getting a little mouthy on the internet, and it got my juices flowing. I was looking forward to shit talking Georgia Tech at the end of the year, so I was kind of hoping they'd beat Clemson yesterday. But they didn't. In fact, not only did they not beat them, oh shit, I gotta turn pages again. I got too many copious notes in this. They lost 42-21. Wasn't even close. And you know what the bright spot has been for Georgia Tech? Haynes King. They've been licking his tank and sucking it from the inside out and blowing it dry. But with this Haynes King, the Georgia Tech man has. How'd he do yesterday? Oh, he completed 35% of his passes for 129 yards and four interceptions. You know how bad of a quarterback you have to be to play Clemson and be the worst quarterback on the field? Because, look, Cade Klubnik is terrible. Cade Klubnik's one of the worst quarterbacks in the Power 5. But he wasn't the worst, at least not yesterday. Haynes King was 35% completion, 129 yards, 4 interceptions. Don't worry, Cade Klubnik had another interception too. So the Clemson helmet will be staying just like it is, upside down. Clemson has not played a game this season where they didn't turn the ball over. Yeah, I'll do it. Clemson is stuck between a rock and a hard spot, aren't they? They just want this season to be over. If they were being truthful with you, they just want this season to be over. If they're being truthful with you, they're dreading that South Carolina game. South Carolina's not any good. I'm not saying they are, but breaking news, neither is Clemson. And they beat Clemson last year. Was that in Death Valley? I think it might have been. No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, they play them again. South Carolina thinks they can win that game. But Clemson's between a rock and a hard place. Their fans are. They want this. They just want to forget about the season. Let's get this season over. Let's get to the off season. We can start focusing on next year. That's great until you sit down and look at the schedule and you say, "Uh-oh, Clemson doesn't get to open up with Duke next year." No, no, they don't get a cupcake opener next year. This year they played Duke, fucking Duke, and they lost. In fact, they got blown out, 28-7. But no, they don't have that luxury next year. You know who they play next year? Georgia, week 1. Oh God, in Atlanta. I remember 2 years ago we played them in Charlotte, where they played the ACC title game. Went up there, whipped their ass, beat them, no problem. En route to a national title, by the way. And this season will start off the same way. Except we'll beat them in Atlanta instead of Charlotte. Man, that'll be... God, Georgia's won 27 games in a row. Let's see. Georgia's won 27 games in a row. Tennessee will be 28. Georgia Tech will be 29. Alabama will be 30. Some do-nothing team in the first round of the playoffs will be 31. The national title game will be 32. Flip the calendar to next season. Clemson, you will be Georgia's 33rd straight win in a row. You have that to look forward to all off season. Fucking morons. Boy. Look, I'm going to admit, I hate Florida. And so, them losing is funny, of course. But LSU is just clearly better than Florida. Now, LSU's not some elite playoff caliber team. I mean, they got 3 losses or whatever they got, but they're just clearly a better team than Florida. So it's not necessarily funny that Florida has to go on the road at night to one of the most difficult places to play, LSU at night, and LSU's a better team. It's not really a surprise that LSU beats them, right? Not even really that funny. Except it is funny. 52-35. Look, and Florida fans are so predictable. They are in love with their offense after this game. They're absolutely in love and mad at their defense. This is look, everybody scores on LSU. LSU's defense is terrible. So, no, this doesn't mean your offense is good. But you lost 52-35. Jaden Daniels. We know he's good. We know Jaden Daniels is good. Heisman contender. Puts up a ton of numbers. But he's never put up these type of numbers. In fact, nobody in the history of the SEC has ever put up these numbers in a game. Listen to this from Jaden Daniels yesterday against our beloved Florida Gators. Sunbelt fucking Billy. Back in his home state where he belongs, by the way, Louisiana. There's plenty of group of 5 teams he can saddle up with there. I don't know why the fuck Florida's paying this guy to be a head coach when he's so bad at it. But listen to what Jaden Daniels did to them yesterday. Passing, 372 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's enough. That's a day right there. That you could cash that in. That's a hell of a performance. 372 yards and 3 touchdowns? That's a hell of a performance. That ain't it though. 234 yards on the ground. Not for LSU as a team, for Jaden fucking Daniels against Florida. And another 2 touchdowns. 372 passing plus 234. That's over 600 yards by one human being against Austin Armstrong's Florida Gators defense. I'd love to go back to the offseason and listen to the Florida Gators fans talk to me about Austin Armstrong some more. Boy, y'all were sucking his dick in August. Now you want him fired. If I live to be 100 years old, I won't get tired of laughing at you idiotic Florida fans. I won't. Over 600 yards Jaden Daniels had on you and 5 total touchdowns. Just humiliating. Graham Mertz actually played good. But it's against LSU. Everybody plays good against LSU, man. Come on. Boy, Florida's horrific. How horrific are they? Well, I'm glad you asked. They've currently lost 3 straight games. Yeah, that's right. They lost to Georgia. They lost to Arkansas. Now they lost to LSU. Guess where they play next week? On the road at Missouri. Missouri do anything this weekend? Did Missouri even play this weekend? On the road at Missouri next week. That sure seems like a 4th straight loss to me. That sure seems like a 4th straight loss to me. And then you get to wrap the season up with an in-state rival. The recruiting bowl. It's a big deal for recruiting this game. Florida at home, right? Against Florida State. Yeah, at home. Florida at home against what will likely be an 11-0 Florida State. Now, here's the chatter leading up to that game. Oh, yeah, well, Florida, they can salvage their season by derailing Florida State's season. You're not beating Florida State. Look, I jumped on Florida State earlier in the video. Probably going to jump on them again in a few minutes. I'm jumping on Florida State because I don't think they can beat teams like Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, shit like that. They're going to beat you by about 6. They'll beat you by about 6 points because that's the type of team they are, but they're going to beat you nonetheless. So that's right. You're going to finish this season, Florida man, with 5 straight losses. I wonder how that momentum is going to do leading into early signing day in December. I wonder. We got a top 5 class. Woo. You ain't got nothing yet. Nobody has signed. They can't sign. Not until the 2nd week in December when early signing day comes around. I wonder how 5 straight losses to end the season. I wonder if that's going to affect that recruiting class at all. Something to ponder. Yeah, so you'll end the season with 5 straight losses. That's going to make your record 5-7. Hey, that's a losing record. Hey, you had a losing record last year, too. Hey, guess what? You had a losing record the year before that, too. Your third straight losing season. And look at your schedule next year. Oh, my God. You're going to have 4 losing seasons in a row. You've already had 2 in a row. This is going to be your third. Next year will be your 4th losing season in a row. Next year will also be Sunbelt Billy's 3rd year. So after next season, Sunbelt Billy will have been there 3 years and had a losing record all 3 years. Now, I fully expect the Florida fans to show up in the offseason and run their mouth and type till their fingers bleed and all this kind of stuff. But we have all seen the schedule. We all know you're probably going to have a worse record next year than you have this year. You're 5-7 this year. You're looking at a 3 or 4 win season next year. Just reality. You play every Power 5 team in Florida. So, of course, you play Florida State because you play them every year. But you also have to play Miami next year. Miami's not great, but I'd pick them right now to beat you. I'd pick them tomorrow to beat you. I'd pick them next month to beat you. And I'll pick them next year to beat you. And then you got to play UCF, the Fighting Goose Malzoons. And that ain't easy to do, is it? Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State got absolutely obliterated by Goose Malzoon in Central Florida yesterday. Florida's got the season next year is going to be just a fucking train wreck. I don't know where Florida goes from here. They're a disaster of a team, a disaster of a program, and there aren't any signs of it turning around. No, this one good recruiting class, even if you hang on to it, even if you keep every commitment you have and they sign in December, even if you end up getting this top 5 recruiting class, doesn't mean anything. Nothing. You need 2, 3, 4 of those in a row. You know, I heard the Florida fans yesterday after the game, well, we really got to raid the portal next year. I saw you've done is raid the portal. You've been doing that. Your best player on offense is Ricky Pearsall. Where'd he come from? The portal. Your starting quarterback is Graham Mertz. Where'd he come from? The portal. That's all you do. You've been doing it. It's not working. The problem is Billy Napier. He's not any good. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's in over his head. These aren't just funny talking points that I've been saying. These are facts. This guy is a joke. I mean, fuck, I hope you keep him forever. Almighty. Let me move on. Speaking of Florida's transfer situation, can we talk about Ole Miss? Can you believe Georgia put up a 50-burger on a top 10 team? I can. Wasn't that long ago we put up a 60-burger on a top 10 team. Remember that? The national title game last year? When Georgia beat TCU and scored 60-something points? Yeah, I remember it. Put up 52 yesterday on the lane train. Absolutely humiliating. Great numbers for Georgia. 52-17, Georgia wins. Ole Miss scored touchdowns on 2 of their first 3 possessions in the first quarter. Ole Miss played the first quarter great. They were only losing, 28-14 at the end of the first quarter or something like that. But yeah, Ole Miss scored on their first possession of the game, which everybody Georgia plays scores on the first possession of the game. Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, everybody scores on their first possession of the game. Ole Miss broke the mold, though. They scored on 2 of their first 3 possessions and had 14 points in the first quarter. Great. Problem is, rest of the game, you only scored 3. Georgia absolutely dominated. Type till your entire arm falls off if you want. Georgia looked like the best team in the country yesterday. That's just a fact. I ran a poll. I probably will forget. I could put it up. I ran a poll of Alabama fans on the live stream yesterday before the Georgia Ole Miss game. This is during the afternoon games. I said, because guess what Alabama's best win is of the season? Ole Miss. That's the highest ranked team Bama has beat. Ole Miss. They beat them 24-10 at home. And Alabama man's been running around all year telling us, Ole Miss is a good team. That's a good win. Ole Miss is a good team. It's a good win. I believe you. So I asked them during the afternoon games. I said, I want Alabama fans to tell me right now, before this Georgia Ole Miss game starts tonight, you tell me. You still think Ole Miss is a good team? Oh, yeah, Ole Miss is a real good team. They're going to beat you. Jackson Dart's going to have 200 yards rushing, 300 yards passing, and Quinshon Judkins is going to have 200 yards rushing, and their defense is going to sack Carson Beck 5 times. Ole Miss is a good team. I believe you. I believe you when you said it. I believe you now. Ole Miss is a good team. But Georgia's a great team. And you know what great teams do to good teams? They don't beat them 24-10. They beat them 52-17. We had backups in the game. We had walk-ons in the game in the fucking fourth quarter. Ole Miss still couldn't score. Oh, boy. Ole Miss had 350 total yards. Total. They had 400 and something against Bama. Bama's got a great defense. Bama's defense ain't all that. It's not. Bama's got, I don't know, 15th, 20th best, 25th best defense, something like that, depending on what you look at. Total defense, rush yards, whatever. Points given up, whatever. They're in the 20s comes to defense. Georgia way better than that. Georgia just way better than that. How'd Carson Beck do? Well, you already know he went over 300 yards again. Carson Beck goes over 300 yards in his sleep. Can somebody point me in the right direction? I'm looking for Carson Beck's bad game. Somebody tell me, where's Carson Beck's bad game? Everybody has a bad game. This is what people keep telling me. Everybody has a bad game. Somebody tell me what bad game Carson Beck has had. I'd love to hear that. Love to know. 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, 30 rush yards just for fun Carson Beck had. We ran for 300 yards as a team. Kendall Milton went over 100 yards, probably the best game of his career. Ladd McConkey went nuts receiving the ball. Brock Bowers, boy. Some of y'all are so mad that Brock Bowers played yesterday. Oh, Georgia ought to be ashamed of itself. Kirby ought to be ashamed of himself. Rushing Brock Bowers back. Nobody rushed anybody back. And nobody rushed anybody back. That's what Brock Bowers said. Let me tell you something about Brock Bowers. I'm not saying that players in Brock's situation that choose not to come back, I'm not even going to say they're doing the wrong thing. I think they are. But that set aside. A lot of money on the line, NFL, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. You want to milk an injury and quit? Okay. You know what happened with Brock Bowers over the last 3 weeks? He was contacted. This is from Brock Bowers. This isn't made up. This isn't third hand. This is from Brock Bowers himself. Brock Bowers was contacted 3 weeks ago, right after he had the surgery, by multiple people associated with the NFL. And he was specifically told by them, it would be in your best interest, Brock, not to come back. Rest, let this thing heal. Don't risk another injury, maybe injure something else. Just let it ride. You know what Brock told him? He said, well, you won't be representing me when I do enter the draft. I'll tell you that right now. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Get out. Or hung the phone up. He didn't want to hear it. He wanted to play. Brock wanted to play. Winners play football. Winners. Brock Bowers didn't play 1 or 2 snaps. Didn't play 5 or 6 snaps. Didn't come in just because it was senior night and let him get an ovation but not do anything. No, he played 90% of the offensive snaps. I don't know the snap count, but he was out there all game long, constantly. He wasn't in one play, out 3 plays, in one play, out. He was in the game, played full-time starter. Even had a couple of catches. 3, I think. Not a lot. 3 catches and a touchdown, I think he had. Only reason you scored 52 points, Brock Bowers. Shut the fuck up. Brock Bowers is better than any player on your team. I don't care who you are. If you're watching this video, Brock Bowers is better than anybody on your team. And he's back. How's that make you feel, Hill Jack man? Huh? You fucking inbred piece of shit motherfucker running your goddamn mouth on TikTok and Twitter. Where are you at? Huh? Where are you? I hope your fucking moonshine still blows up. I do. I hope your moonshine still blows up. Hope it blows your lips off. Fucking degenerate piece of shit. $52-17 against a top 10 opponent. Wow. Is that the best win of the college football season so far by any team? Yeah, it is. It is. That's the best win. You can say, well, Washington beat Oregon, and Oregon's ranked higher. Washington barely beat them. Barely. Texas beat Bama. Yeah, by 10. That's a good win. Bama beat Ole Miss by 14. That's a good win. Hey, Bama, I'm not taking anything away from you. That's a good win, Bama. You beat Ole Miss by 10 at home in Tuscaloosa. That's a good win. I'm proud of you. Michigan beat Penn State by, what was it, 24-15, 9 points. Beat Penn State, beat a 2-loss team by 9. It's a good win. It's a good win for Michigan. Florida State, beat LSU by a couple of scores. That's a good win. 3-loss team. LSU, it's a pretty good win. Ohio State's got a win over Penn State. It's a pretty good win. Those wins pale in comparison to 52-17 against top 10 team. Cry, type, rinse, repeat. Georgia's the best team in the country today. You're just a blind homer. I have not said that a single time this season. There has not been a single day this season where I have looked into this camera and said Georgia's the best team in the country. Not one. Because I didn't think they were at those particular times. There's been times when I thought Michigan was the best team in the country. There's been times when I thought Florida State was the best team in the country. And that was a long time ago, real early in the season. There's been times when I thought Ohio State might be the best team. I thought Washington was the best team in the country for about the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Oregon. I said out loud last week, I thought Oregon might be the best team in the country. So no, I don't come on here every week and toot my horn and say Georgia's the best team in the country. No, I haven't had Georgia ranked number 1 since week 3. I had Georgia all the way down to number 8 at one point. Then I slowly climbed back up because other teams have been losing and Georgia would have a good win or whatever the case. But I haven't had Georgia ranked number 1 in my rankings since week 3. Don't tell me I just blind Georgia homer, come on here every week and say, no, I don't. But I'm telling you right now, Georgia's the best team in the country right now. Now the national title ain't handed out today. Just like the national title wasn't handed out last week when I thought Oregon was the best team. It wasn't handed out in week 3 or 4 when Ohio State beat Notre Dame and I thought maybe they were the best team. Wasn't handed out in any week where Michigan blew out of nobody. Doesn't mean Georgia's winning the national title. But right now, today, Georgia's the best team in the country. 52-17, over 600 yards of offense. Carson Beck with another 300-yard passing game. The best running game of the season for UGA. 300 yards rushing. A smothering defense. Outside of those 2 drives in the first quarter, Ole Miss didn't know which way was up. Today, Sunday, November 13th, 12th, whatever it is, Georgia's the best team in the country. Cry, bitch, moan, pout. I don't care. Put a tampon in, whatever you need to do. Soak it in hot sauce first, too. Colorado. I just like talking about Colorado every week. Yeah, of course they lost again. They played Arizona. Yeah, any team with a heartbeat's going to beat Colorado. But it was funny because Colorado strung their fans along yesterday. They hung in there. They gave it the old college try. And then Arizona hit a game-winning field goal on them at the end and beat them by 3. Oh, man. The Deion stands were in shambles. The Deion stands were in absolute shambles. They really were. Deion Sanders is not a football coach, people. He's not a football coach. He's a male cheerleader. He needs a bullhorn. He is to college football what Flava Flav is to the rap game. Okay? He's just a loudmouth hype man. That's all he is. He's a team mom with a gold whistle. That's it. He's not a football coach. They lost again. And they're not done losing. Colorado sucks. Hey, did you know that Arizona was a 1-win team before they hired their current coach? Oh, leave Colorado alone. Deion inherited a 1-win team. So did Jeb Fish, the coach at Arizona. He inherited a 1-win team too. He's 7-3. He's also a football coach. Colorado should look into hiring one. I hear there's one available. Jimbo, maybe just trade. Just trade. Jimbo goes to Colorado. Deion comes to Texas A&M. Boy, wouldn't that be a great fit? Can you imagine? Let me get some water. I made it a long time in this video without having to cough or take a water break. Though, are y'all proud of me? If you are, fucking type about it. Can you imagine Deion as head coach at Texas A&M? Yeah, mighty. Boy, that would be funny, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. There's only one team left. Only one team left over here. Oh, man. I'm a little mad about this. Boy, this really took the air out of the Tennessee man's tire, didn't it? It sure did. I don't know. Can you flatten a wooden tire? I don't know. So maybe that was a bad analogy to say it took the air out of the Tennessee man's tire. They're still riding around with wooden wheels up there. But Tennessee got absolutely embarrassed yesterday. I would put that on the level of last year's South Carolina loss. Now, there's an obvious difference. Mizzou's a legitimately good team. Now, I know none of y'all think that because Georgia beat them, right? And if Georgia beats them, then they're no good immediately, you know. But let's not forget, y'all also told me Missouri was beating Georgia all week, 2 weeks ago, until the game was played. And then Georgia beat them. And then you told me they're no good. They're pretty good. Whereas South Carolina last year wasn't any good. But this is embarrassing for Tennessee. This looked like some of the worst Tennessee teams we saw under like the Derek Dooley, Butch Jones. I am not comparing Josh Heupel to those two coaches, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But this looked like a game where Tennessee showed up knowing they weren't going to win. And I kind of thought those days were behind Tennessee, both as a fan base and a football program, to be honest with you, after beating Alabama last year and then winning a New Year's Six game and all that. I kind of thought that was behind Tennessee as a program. But that team I saw yesterday trot out onto the field against Missouri looked like a lot of those Tennessee teams I saw at the end of the year with going back to Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, even Jerome Pruitt. It looked like a team that took the field telling themselves, I hope we don't get blown out. Instead of taking the field going, we're going to win this game. I saw no confidence. I thought Joe Milton actually played okay. I'm concerned about Tennessee. 36-7. They got blown out by Missouri. 80 yards rushing. Let me tell you something about running the ball. It's about 50% mentality. Now, yes, you've got to have a good offensive line. You've got to have good running backs. But ask yourself this, though. Does Tennessee have a good offensive line? On a scale of like terrible, bad, good, great. Tennessee's got a good offensive line. Do they have good running backs on a scale of terrible, bad, good, great? They've got good running backs. You know what they didn't have yesterday? The will to win. The psychology, the mindset, the determination, the faith, the belief. They ran for 80 yards. This is a team that has been leading the SEC in rushing this season. That's a team that gave up yesterday. Again, I'm not to take away from Missouri. Missouri was the better team. Look, I picked Tennessee to win. I said I think Missouri's the better team, but there was a report during the week that Luther Burden might not play, and Georgia a lot of times beats teams twice. That teams have a hard time recovering from a loss to Georgia for whatever reason. Just go look at Georgia beats a team, they tend to lose the next week. Not always, but usually. So I picked Tennessee to win. They didn't show up. Now, Missouri is the better team. I don't take anything away from them, but this is really bad if you're Tennessee. 80 yards rushing. Milton was 22 of 34 for 267 yards. Now, that's not lighting the world on fire, but that's way better than a lot of his stat lines this season in games that Tennessee won. The difference was the lines of scrimmage here. And in other words, Tennessee didn't have one. Their defense got bullied along the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line got bullied along the line of scrimmage. And again, that is mentality. That happens up here. Tennessee's got a good offensive line. Is it great? No. Is it winning the Joe Moore Award? No. Is it Georgia's or Michigan's offensive line? No. But it's also not Alabama's offensive line either. I mean, it's not that bad. It's a good offensive line. Do they have good running backs? Yes. You don't get to week 10 of the college football season and you're leading the SEC in rushing as a team if you don't have a good offensive line and good running backs. Mentality. Tennessee showed up to lose yesterday. it's a bad and alarming sign. And it could not have happened at a worse time for Tennessee as a team, because Georgia is coming in there next week. And look, yes, I'm a Georgia fan, so you can think that I'm saying what I'm saying just because I'm a Georgia fan. Anybody with any college football common sense at all, I think, can see what's coming. Georgia is going to come in there and put one on you. Bad. I'm just telling you. I would not have said that a week ago. I thought Georgia would win the game. Close. Go back and listen to me talk about, look, what have I been saying for the last month? Georgia's going to lose a game. Georgia's going to lose a game. This is a tough stretch of games. Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, 4 weeks in a row. This Tennessee game has now become the easiest of the four. The easiest of the four. Easier than Florida, without question. Tennessee is in trouble. And Georgia's going to come in there and euthanize them. I'm just telling you, it's going to be bad. Is it going to be 41-0 bad like we beat you 5 or 6 years ago? Probably not. But it's going to be bad. It is going to be bad. And I'm a little Schrader from Missouri, by the way. Not a Jaden Daniels performance, but close. That running back from Missouri, 205 rushing yards with a touchdown, another 116 receiving yards. The guy had 325 yards on you, that Schrader. And I told you he was good. He had like 130 yards or whatever it was against Georgia last week. That's amazing to have against Georgia. He doubled that against you. But anyway, this loss pisses me off because I've been looking forward not just to the game coming up on Saturday. I've been looking forward to the 6 days leading up to the game, going back and forth with the Hill Jacks, because I thought, much like I thought about Georgia Tech fans, that they would be excited for this week, that they would have hope, that they would have belief in their podunk, dead fucking football program, that this was the year they could get over the hump and beat Uncle Lou. But it's not gonna fucking happen. You guys are terrible. And this is whatever you believe in. Karma, football gods, whatever. This is the karma from that fucking idiot running his mouth all over the internet about Brock Bowers 2 weeks ago. You're looking at Dr. Jack Kevorkian right now. That's me. I am the college football Jack Kevorkian. And I am coming to euthanize the Tennessee fan base from the internet. Get the fuck off of my internet, Tennessee man. Get off of my goddamn internet. I thought I told you to get off my internet. Why are you still here? Who won yesterday but looked good? Well, I'm glad you asked. Kansas State. Boy, if you have a rough outing, just play Baylor the following week. 59-28, Kansas State beat Baylor. Everybody beats Baylor. Shout out to Baylor, man. But my God, man. Basketball, boy, I hope y'all are good in basketball because I know you're a basketball fan because football is not working out. Oklahoma, 59-20 over West Virginia. Oklahoma needed a big win. They were demoralized after the Bedlam game last week. They needed a big win. They got it against a better than expected this season West Virginia team, 59-20. Oregon State, 62-17 against Stanford. Now, Stanford's terrible, but I don't care who you're playing. 62 points? Holy moly. 62-17, they beat Stanford. I actually think Alabama played well yesterday. I know they gave up 21 points to Kentucky, but 49-21, they beat them. This game was never close. It was 21-0 with, this game was 21-0 with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. Alabama came out 100 miles an hour, pedal to the metal from the word go in this one. And the game was over, like I said, with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. It was 21-0. Mildew had 6 touchdowns. Is that right? Or 4 or 5. He had a bunch of touchdowns again. Whatever it was. I know the Alabama fans are excited about Jalen Mildew, and he has played good the last couple of weeks. He's not winning the Heisman. He just doesn't have the numbers. He's playing like a Heisman candidate now. But the Heisman is a season-long award, and just try to be rational for a second if you can, and I'm not convinced you can, but just try. Mildew just does not have the numbers to win the Heisman. He just doesn't. He's got half the numbers of Jaden Daniels. Half. Never mind Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I mean, I'm going to talk about the Heisman more, but like both things can be true. You know, you can say Mildew's had a good couple of games, played really good. It's okay to say that because it's true. You can also say, well, he's not going to win the Heisman, but he's playing really good right now. Well, I mean, both those things are true. He's not winning the Heisman. Y'all need to, Alabama fans, man. It's been a theory for a while. I don't even know if it's a theory anymore at this point. It's probably just a provable fact. Just, God, they're fucking dumb. I mean, they are really fucking dumb. Anyway, congratulations to Alabama for beating Kentucky, I guess. Ohio State 38-3 over Michigan State. Now, Michigan State's terrible, but 38-3. Ohio State, maybe this is what they needed to kind of jumpstart their offense, you know? I mean, Ohio State's undefeated. Their defense is way better than last year. There's no question about it. There's also no question that the offense has fallen off of a cliff. I mean, that's not shit talking. That's reality. Check any offensive numbers last year to this year. The offensive numbers are way, way down. Maybe a game against a bad Michigan State team is what somebody like a Kyle McCord needed to get his confidence up. I think he had 300-something yards passing yesterday. Marvin Harrison had 3 touchdowns, right? Two receiving and 1 rushing on like a jet sweep deal. You know, so again, I'm not convinced that Ohio State's offense has figured it all out and they're going to score 40 points a game the rest of the way. But, you know, it's at least worth considering that maybe playing this bad Michigan State team is kind of exactly what the doctor ordered for Ohio State from like a confidence perspective. I don't know. I'm trying to be positive about Ohio State. There you go. They beat 38. All this guy does talk about Ohio State. Fuck Ohio State. But they looked good yesterday, 38-3. Beat Michigan State. Don't worry. Some teams want to look bad, though. You already know they did. They had to. Texas, 29-26 to TCU. TCU had the ball at the end of the game, too. Chance to go down and tie it or win it. It came up a little short. TCU scored 20 points on Texas in the fourth quarter. This was a blowout. People quit. I quit watching. I mean, I ain't going to lie. I didn't watch the fourth quarter. I'll be honest with you. Texas was up 3 touchdowns or whatever it was in the fourth quarter. No one was watching. And then all of a sudden the game's over and you look down and you see that the score was 29-26 and you're like, what the hell happened? Well, TCU scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. That's what happened. Gave Texas all they wanted at the end. Already talked about Oregon. That's not all that convincing to me, given where I think Southern Cal is at right now as a team and as a program. Coaching upheaval with Grinch being fired, Caleb Williams crying with his mom in the stands, give up mode, nothing to play for. They're going to have to go on the road and play at Oregon, a tough environment. And again, the game was never in doubt. I never thought for a second Oregon was going to lose, and Bo Nix had a great game, but 36-27, I just thought it would have been a little bit better. I couldn't put it in the good win category. Sorry. I think you know I like Oregon. I'm not totally shitting on them. They're a good team, a legitimate team, but I wasn't all that impressed with them yesterday. Nor was I impressed with Washington, 35-28 over Utah. Washington just keeps doing this way too much now. It's fun to go back and laugh at Georgia for close wins in week 2, but have you paid any attention to Georgia lately? I mean, you need to be playing your best football now. Ask yourself this. Okay, Alabama fans, you want me to say something nice about Alabama? Listen to this. This goes out to Florida State fans, Washington fans, Oregon fans. Well, let's just start. Who could possibly make the playoff? I've got a message for Ohio State. Y'all could make the playoff. Got a message for you. Florida State, y'all can make the playoff. This message coming up is for you. Washington, Michigan, Oregon, Texas. That's your playoff teams pretty much. Anyway, I've got a message for any team that has playoff aspirations. Would you agree with me that you want to be playing your best football at the end of the season? Yes, of course you would. Of course you would. Who's doing that right now? Who's playing better right now? Who's playing their best football of the season right now? Which teams are getting more healthy? And which teams are getting less healthy? This is going to... There was a narrative the first month of the season. The SEC is terrible. The SEC is down. It's a bad season for the SEC. I'm about to drop a truth bomb on all of you right now, especially those of you who have playoff aspirations, okay? I'm going to drop a truth bomb on you. It's going to hurt. You're not going to want to hear it. It's going to be hard to swallow, but it's the truth nonetheless. The two best teams in college football right now, today, are Georgia and Alabama. That's the bad news for you. The good news is you only have to play one of them. You don't have to play Alabama. Georgia's going to take care of them in 3 weeks. Don't worry about it. But those are the two best teams in football right now. Now, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I've told you I don't rank teams based on opinion. Some opinion, but I try to use as little opinion as possible. Are my rankings going to be Georgia 1, Alabama 2? No. Because I can't prove that Georgia and Alabama are the two best teams. That's just what I think. There are things I can prove. I can prove Ohio State is undefeated. I can prove Florida State's undefeated. I can prove Washington, Georgia, and Michigan are undefeated, which is why they will continue to be ranked ahead of these teams in my ranking. Okay? So don't get your panties all twisted. But Georgia and Alabama right now are the two best teams in the country. They're playing the best football today. The SEC is down. The SEC is terrible. The SEC is overrated. The SEC is not making the playoffs. Hide and watch, dummies. Hide and fucking watch. Question for the Alabama fans. I think you know how I feel about this, but I'm going to ask you. Just because, no particular reason. If Georgia beats you in the SEC championship game, will you be pulling for Georgia to win it all? If Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, I will be pulling for Alabama to win it all. I'm an SEC homer. I can't help it. I love all of college football, and I don't let my homerism blind me or shade my judgment. I've had either Michigan or Ohio State ranked number 1 in every single ranking I've done this season. I've had Florida State ahead of Georgia until last week. But I'm an SEC homer. So, Bama, man, if you beat Georgia in Atlanta, I'll pull for you to win it all. But will you pull for Uncle Lou? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. I've won 27 games in a row. I've won 20. Think about it. Now, you're an Alabama fan, so you don't know anything about it. Nick Saban's never won 27 games in a row. But Kirby has. And one of those wins was against Nick Saban. That's right. One of those 27 wins in a row was Kirby beating Saban and me, Uncle Lou, beating you, the Alabama fan. 27 in a row. About to be 28. Unbelievable. So, that's that. Those teams played good and bad. Did we do the good? Did we do the bad? More bad. Florida State 27-20 over Miami. I'm so sick of hearing from Florida State fans. It's to the point now I hope Florida State does go undefeated so Georgia can play them. First of all, it's an automatic win to whoever gets to play Florida State in the playoffs. Number 2, I just would love to humiliate Florida State fan. I hope Georgia plays Florida State in the first round of the playoffs. That will give me 3 weeks lead up to that game. You know, there's like a 3-week period between the time playoffs are announced and the time the first round playoff game is played. I would love to take 3 weeks during my holidays and just absolutely humiliate and embarrass Florida State fans online. I'd love to do that. Louisville 31-24 over Virginia. Boy, the ACC. ACC is fucking pitiful. Florida State and Virginia are the best they have to offer in the ACC. What a fucking joke. There you go. There's that. So that's good wins, bad wins. Who else lost? Oklahoma State, talked about them. Embarrassed by Goose Malzahn. Rutgers lost 22-0 to Iowa. Who cares? Well, a lot of people. You know why? This was one of the most bet games of the college football season. And you're probably saying, why? Who the fuck is betting on Rutgers and Iowa? The over-under on Rutgers, Iowa yesterday was 28. If you're not a gambling person, you don't know what that means. The over-under is the expected total number of points scored. In other words, the combined score of both teams. And you then can bet whether you think the total points scored in the game will be over that number or under that number. The over-under Rutgers-Iowa game yesterday was 28. The lowest over-under number in college football in decades. Decades. 36, 37, 38. That's low for college football. The average is about 44, 45, 46 points. That's the average over-under for a college football game. Iowa Rutgers over-under was 28, and it wasn't low enough. 80% of the money bet on that game was bet on the under, and guess what? The under hit. Iowa won 22-0. 22 points scored under the 28. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What else? Duke, boy, maybe the best game of the season that nobody watched, and I know for a fact nobody watched it. Don't try to tell me you watched it. I know nobody watched it. I didn't watch it either. 47-45, Duke loses to North Carolina in double overtime. You heard me right. Duke scored 45 points without Riley Leonard against North Carolina. Boy, I thought North Carolina had figured something out defensively. That was fool's gold. Shout out to Drake May. I still think he's really good, but man, he's stuck in a bad spot on that North Carolina. He can't wait to get to the NFL, can he? Yeah, unbelievable. Boston College, hey. Well, Boston College isn't any good. Well, Boston College ain't as bad. Lou keeps talking like Boston College is some terrible team. Florida State beat them on the road by 2, and Lou makes fun of that. Boston College ain't that bad. Boston College is horrific, dumbass. In fact, they're so horrific that they got blown out yesterday by Virginia Tech, 48-22. But yeah, congratulations. You beat them by 2 points. Unbelievable. BYU lost again, this time to Iowa State. Nebraska. Oh, man. Nebraska is going to absolutely break the heart of their fans. Nebraska has been sitting on 5 wins for 2 weeks. They haven't got to a bowl game since 2016. That's all they want is to get to a bowl. They want to make a bowl game so bad they can't stand it. And they get to 5 wins 2 weeks ago, and they're like, okay, we're going to get there. We can win one more game. Then they lose last week. And then this week, you look down and you go, well, they're playing Maryland. Maryland's lost 5 games in a row? Yeah, Maryland has lost 5 games in a row. Is that right? 4. Sorry, 4. They've lost 4 games in a row. Maryland beat them 13-10. Nebraska still stuck on 5 wins. And guess who they play next? On the road at Wisconsin. They're probably going to be an underdog. The last game of the year, home against Iowa. Probably going to be an underdog. Nebraska is going to drive their fans to an early grave. They hit 5 wins in like week 7. And they're not going to make a bowl game. God. The misery of Nebraska fans. And on top of that, they had to wake up this morning knowing that they live in fucking Nebraska. Oh, the humanity. Texas A&M, of course, was the biggest winner of the day yesterday. They beat Mississippi State 51-10 and fired Jimbo Fisher. So they're the biggest winner of the day. All right, we're almost done here. The We're Back rankings. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you asked. We'll do the We're Back rankings, but where are they? Oh, yeah, they're over here. 3 pages of notes. Good Lord. All right, the We're Back rankings. You know what this is by now. There are 4 fan bases that claim they're back every single offseason, yet they're not. Texas, who hasn't won a conference title since 2009. Miami, who hasn't won a conference title since 2002, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Tennessee, who hasn't won a conference title since last century, 1998. And Notre Dame, who hasn't won a major postseason game in 35 years. But every offseason, these fan bases run around, oh, we're back. This is the year. We got this player and this coach. And then they just, they shit on their own foot and lose game after game. And every week we rank them, just these 4 teams, on who is the closest to actually being back. So this week at number 1, the closest to actually being back, the team that might legitimately end up being back, Texas. They're number one again. They won, but close, but they're on track to win the Big 12, which would mean they're kind of back. Number 2, Miami. Miami lost, but barely, to a somehow top 5 Florida State team. They lost 27-20. They're number 2 this week. Notre Dame comes in at number 3. They were off, but they're coming off of a beatdown at the hands of the Clemson Taters 2 weeks ago. They lost to Clemson. So they're 3, but they're not sucking hind tit. Last place, pulling up the rear, dead last, hardly even worth mentioning. A football program kept only alive by the idiocy of its fans. Tennessee at number 4, who got absolutely destroyed by Missouri yesterday, 36-7. There you go. Texas 1, Miami 2, Notre Dame 3, Tennessee 4. Playoff rankings. What do I think the playoff committee is going to do? These aren't my rankings, okay? This is what I think the playoff committee is going to do this week. I think the playoff committee is moving Georgia to number 1. I think the playoff committee is moving Ohio State to number 2. Last week, they had Ohio State 1, Georgia 2. I think the playoff committee flip-flops those this week. I think they put Georgia at 1, Ohio State 2. Last week, they had Michigan at 3. I think they keep Michigan at 3. Last week, they had Florida State at 4. I think Washington moves ahead of Florida State into the 4th spot. So I think the playoff committee, not me, the playoff committee, when their rankings come out, I think it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Washington. My top 4, Georgia, I'm moving Georgia back to number 1. I believe they're the best team in the country right now, and they're undefeated, so I'm moving them to number 1. I'm moving Ohio State to 2. Georgia had a 52-17 win over a top 10 team. Ohio State won 38-3, which is convincing against like a 2-win Michigan State team, though, or whatever they are. So just a way better win for Georgia. I'm moving Georgia up. Cry about it if you want to. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2. I've got Washington at 3 this week. I've got Florida State at 4. And, of course, I've got Michigan at 5 because I'm not moving Michigan any higher than 5 because, well, they cheated and they got caught red-handed. So I'm just not putting Michigan in my top 4. It's just not happening. So there you go. This week's Your Season is Over video. Absolutely unbelievable. Helmet updates. Colorado staying upside down until I no longer feel like it. It could be forever. Clemson, helmet upside down until they play a game without turning the ball over. They've got a couple more chances to do it. BYU. Somebody told me to turn the BYU helmet over yesterday until BYU wins another Big 12 game, and they promptly went out and lost to Iowa State. So it stays upside down. Michigan staying upside down until they learn to stop cheating. And that's completely up to me on when that is, by the way. Iowa, upside down until their offense scores 28 points. I believe that's it. That is it. All right, there you go. The Your Season is Over video, Week 11 edition. Don't forget to cry down below, and I'll talk to you again soon. Have a good morning.